The Holy Gospel of our Lord according to St. John. Glory be to thee, O Lord. Chapter 18. When Jesus had said these things, he went forth with his disciples over the brook Cedron, where there was a garden, into which he entered with his disciples. And Judas also, who betrayed him, knew the place, because Jesus had often resorted thither together with his disciples. Judas, therefore, having received a band of soldiers and servants from the chief priests and the Pharisees, cometh thither with lanterns and torches and weapons. Jesus, therefore, knowing all things that should come upon him, went forth and said to them, Whom seek ye? They answered him, Jesus of Nazareth. Jesus said to them, I am he. And Judas also, who betrayed him, stood with them. As soon, therefore, as he said to them, I am he, they went backward and fell to the ground. Again, therefore, he asked them, Whom seek ye? And they said, Jesus of Nazareth. Jesus answered, I have told you that I am he. If therefore you seek me, let these go their way, that the word might be fulfilled which he said, Of them whom thou hast given me, I have not lost any one. Then Simon Peter, having a sword, drew it, and struck the servant of the high priest, and cut off his right ear. And the name of the servant was Malchus. Jesus therefore said to Peter, Put up thy sword into the scabbard. The chalice which my Father hath given me, shall I not drink it? Then the band and the tribune and the servants of the Jews took Jesus and bound him. And they led him away to Annas first, for he was the father-in-law to Caiaphas, who was the high priest of that year. Now Caiaphas was he who had given the counsel to the Jews that it was expedient that one man should die for the people. And Simon Peter followed Jesus, and so did another disciple. And that disciple was known to the high priest, and went in with Jesus into the court of the high priest. But Peter stood at the door without. The other disciple, therefore, who was known to the high priest, went out and spoke to the portress, and brought in Peter. The maid, therefore, that was the portress, saith to Peter, Art not thou also one of this man's disciples? He saith, I am not. Now the servants and ministers stood at a fire of coals, because it was cool, and warmed themselves. And with them was Peter also standing, and warming himself. The high priest therefore asked Jesus of his disciples, and of his doctrine. Jesus answered him, I have spoken openly to the world. I have always taught in the synagogue and in the temple, whither all the Jews resort, and in secret I have spoken nothing. Why askest thou me? Ask them who have heard what I have spoken unto them. Behold, they know what things I have said. And when he had said these things, one of the servants standing by gave Jesus a blow, saying, Answerest thou the high priest so? Jesus answered him, If I have spoken evil, give testimony of the evil. But if well, why strikest thou me? And Annas sent him bound to Caiaphas the high priest. And Simon Peter was standing and warming himself. They said therefore to him, Art not thou also one of his disciples? He denied it and said, I am not. One of the servants of the high priest, a kinsman to him whose ear Peter cut off, said to him, Did I not see thee in the garden with him? Again, therefore, Peter denied, and immediately the cock crew. Then they led Jesus from Caiaphas to the governor's hall, and it was morning. And they that went not into the hall, that they might not be defiled, but that they might eat the Pasch. Pilate therefore went out to them and said, What accusation bring you against this man? They answered and said to him, If he were not a malefactor, we would not have delivered him up to thee. Pilate therefore said to them, Take him you and judge him according to your law. The Jews therefore said to him, It is not lawful for us to put any man to death, that the word of Jesus might be fulfilled, which he said, signifying what death he should die. Pilate therefore went into the hall again and called Jesus, and said to him, Art thou the King of the Jews? Jesus answered, Sayest thou this thing of thyself, or have others told thee of me? Pilate answered, Am I a Jew? Thy own nation and chief priests have delivered thee up to me. What hast thou done? Jesus answered, My kingdom is not of this world. If my kingdom were of this world, my servants would certainly strive that I should not be delivered to the Jews. But now my kingdom is not from hence. Pilate therefore said to him, Art thou a king then? Jesus answered, Thou sayest that I am a king. For this was I born, and for this I came into the world, that I should give testimony to the truth. Every one that is of the truth heareth my voice. Pilate said to him, What is truth? And when he said this, he went out again to the Jews, and saith to them, I find no cause in him. But you have a custom that I should release one unto you at the Pasch. Will you therefore that I release unto you the King of the Jews? Then cried they all again, saying, Not this man, but Barabbas. Now Barabbas was a robber. Thus far are the words of the Holy Gospel. Praise be to thee, O Christ. In John chapter 18, we enter into the passion, the suffering of Jesus Christ, his betrayal by his own people. In chapter 17, yesterday, we read about his high priestly prayer to unite his apostles and to unite all his disciples, all Christians, in the truth, to sanctify them in the truth. Here, Judas goes forth and he accompanies the soldiers. Now, the soldiers and the servants who come to arrest Christ are not the Romans. It says here that there was a band of soldiers and servants from the chief priests and the Pharisees. The chief priests at the Sanhedrin had their own police, their own guards, and these are the ones that come to arrest Christ. There's the interesting detail of Peter pulling out his sword and cutting off the man named Malchus, his right ear, who's a servant of the high priest. And Christ says, Put thy sword into thy scabbard. The chalice which my Father hath given me, shall I not drink? And of course, we know from the other Gospels, Christ heals the ear of that man. Christ willingly goes into the hands of the guards of the high priest. There's an interesting detail here in verses 13 and 14. Verse 13, and they led him away to Annas first, for he was the father-in-law to Caiaphas, who was the high priest of that year. Annas had been the high priest before, and in a way, as we see in the book of Acts, Annas and Caiaphas are operating in a pontifical diarchy. One is the real priest, but the other one is assuming high priestly powers. And I did a video on this before, but it's an unusual feature of the time in which Christ is betrayed, that the high priesthood itself is, of course, corrupt. They're condemning Christ, but there's confusion in the jurisdiction of the high priesthood. So they bring Christ first to Annas, who was the high priest, and then they bring him to Caiaphas, who is the high priest. Now, Peter and John follow behind. John has access in, Peter doesn't. So Peter has to stay outside. And the maid, therefore, that was the portress is a female porter, she says, Art not thou also one of this man's disciples? And of course, Peter denies knowing Christ 3 times, and then the cock crew, which is a great way of saying crowed. The cock crowed. Peter denies Christ while John is inside with with Christ our Lord. And we'll see that just as Peter denied Christ around a charcoal fire 3 times, so Christ is going to reinstate Peter, asking him, "Do you love me?" 3 times. Where? At a charcoal fire. The charcoal fire is the setting for both the denial, threefold denial, and the threefold restoration of Peter as Pope. So he goes to Annas, he goes to Caiaphas, and then he goes to Pilate. Pilate is somewhat confused and perplexed by Christ. There's the interesting conversation that goes back and forth where Christ says, "My kingdom is not of this world." Pilate thinks, well, what's the point then? If your kingdom isn't here in Israel, you're not claiming to be the king of Israel right here. I mean, in a way, Christ is, of course, but Christ is expanding his kingdom. Pilate says to him, "What is truth?" And then he goes out and he tries to make a deal with the Jews. He said, "Hey, I release one criminal to you every Passover. Would you like me to release this man, King of the Jews?" And then they all cry out saying, "No, not this man, but Barabbas." Barabbas in Aramaic, bar means son, Abba means father, Abba, father. So there's an irony here. There's a symbol here that they're offered to receive a second chance by God to the Jewish people. Would you like me to release Jesus, the Son of the Father, the Messiah, to you? And they say, no, we want Bar Abba, son of the Father, a different son of the Father. Bar Abba, Barabbas, he is a robber. He really is a criminal. So the people choose, in a way, here an antichrist, a fake son of the Father. All right, well, that's John chapter 18, and we're moving into the last few chapters of John's Gospel as we read through John in Advent. Thanks so much for watching. I have an announcement. Those supporters on Patreon who are so generous, the student level and above, will be receiving a signed copy of The Rosary in 50 Pages, my new book. I am very sorry and sad to announce that there's a shipping delay. And while I was hoping they would arrive last week, they're not arriving to this week. So unfortunately, they will not arrive by Christmas unless a miracle happens and they arrive today. Then they'll make it before Christmas. So I am very sorry and I apologize for that. Also, if please like this video, also share this video, and please subscribe to get the live updates. And if you'd like to get a signed copy of Rosary in 50 Pages, that option is still available. Just go to patreon.com/Dr. Taylor Marshall. If you're student level or above, you'll get a signed copy. And again, I apologize about the delay. All right, remember, our Lord Jesus Christ said, "You're the light of the world and the salt of the earth," so go out there and be salty. And I'm going to close with the Ave Maria. In nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti. Amen. Ave Maria, gratia plena Dominus tecum, benedicta tu in mulieribus et benedictus fructus ventris tui, Iesus. Sancta Maria, Mater Dei, ora pro nobis peccatoribus, nunc et at hora mortis nostrae. Amen. In nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti. Amen. All right, pray that rosary every single day. God bless you and happy Advent.